Women who propose to your boyfriend, how did they react when you were the one to pop the question? He was pretty taken aback and said it was the nicest thing anyone has ever done for him. Then I reminded him he hadn't answered the question yet, and he said yes. I had planned to propose to my live-in boyfriend of 2 years at a romantic dinner on our anniversary, but we had a spontaneous trip to LA pop up. We cancelled our dinner so given we wanted to spend the money on our vacation instead. Ended up still going out that night with friends to one of our favorite arcade bars. I admit I'd had a little liquid courage when I looked up at him and knew it was the real deal, so I just asked him. He said yes immediately. Flash forward months later and I overheard him telling a friend that even if I hadn't proposed, that we still would have gotten engaged within a few months. At first I felt bad that maybe I had stolen his moment, but he was all for it and I'm glad it happened in a way that was perfect for the two of us. Not to mention that same arcade bar became our after party venue for the wedding, which was awesome. We played pinball and sakeball in our wedding formal. That sounds like such a fun wedding. I've dragged him through Vienna for a week as this was on our first vacation together. Finally, he gave up and said he couldn't walk anymore. We sat down in the orangery of Schönbrunn Palace where I asked him. First thing he said was, seriously, followed by, yes, followed by, you have to carry me home now. I'm stealing that last line if I'm ever in that situation. That's hilarious. My wife doesn't post here. One day, she said, hey, you wanna get married? I said, okay. Happy together for 18 years and counting. It's a simple spell but quite unbreakable. I proposed to my husband, but we both already knew we would be getting married. I like to think it was pretty romantic, at sunset on a bridge in a little French village in Provence. I made him turn around for something and he immediately figured out what was happening, so tried, and failed, to stay calm and just looked like he was going to burst from excitement. I got down on my knee, told him he was the best thing that happened to me, and he said yes, of course, and we kissed. Then he said he wanted to give it a try, so he got down on one knee and proposed to me too. We'd already discussed how we wanted the proposal would go, and decided while either of us could pop it if we wanted to. I was generally better at planning things out and putting my foot down. I was also the one to ask him out when we first met. He kinda went WTF like I was crazy or something. This is after 6 years of living together. Then I started snooping and found out about all the skanks he was screwing on our couch while I was at work. I'm in a different country now. Hey now, this answer was sad. He said he had to think about it. Mind you, we'd been living together for 2 years and I proposed to him in bed. About a week later, after I had pretty much convinced myself I'd need to find a new place to stay, he sang a song he wrote accepting the proposal, and we've been married 36 years. Husband, here, my then GF and I made an annual trip to Las Vegas for a Halloween music festival. For years. During the planning of the current year's trip she said, hey, we should get married on Halloween this year. I said it was a great idea and we got married. That was 10 years ago and we've been happily married ever since. For what it's worth, we had been together for 10 years already when she proposed. We had a pretty nonchalant view on marriage but we instantly loved being married after. 10/10 would marry her again. I love this. I genuinely smiled reading this, and I never smile. We were lying in bed on a Monday morning, wrestling. I mostly jokingly said, marry me already. He said, are you seriously asking me? I, thinking he was just calling my bluff, called his and said yes. Then he said yes and promptly called his mother, who was caught off guard about this news at 8:30 on a Monday. Going on 4 years married this winter. Wrestling. Is that what you guys call it? My sister-in-law proposed to my brother. She took some photos of his work stuff. He's a firefighter, so his last name is on everything, and put them on canvas. She convinced him to drive to one of their favorite places with this mystery box. When she finally got him to focus on the box, she pulled out the pictures and asked what the theme was. When he guessed his last name, she pulled out a paper saying, you stole my heart. Can I steal your last name? He was pretty stoked. He was really excited that she asked, and said yes. When he told us, the family, he said he's relieved because proposing to her never crossed his mind. He was so content he would have never thought of change. This is adorable. I proposed. He mentioned something about marriage 2 years before I proposed, but I wasn't ready. I just showed up to his house a week or two before Christmas with my family and we went caroling. I walked up to him and asked him. I didn't have a ring because I didn't know his size, but I got one for him for Christmas. He just stared at me and said, "Are you serious?" I said yes and pulled flowers from behind my back. Again, "Are you serious?" I said yes. Finally his brother popped out from behind him and said, "Dude, just hug her already," and he did. And the next day he asked if it was real. Obligatory not me post. My mom proposed to my dad. He was over at her parents' house and my mom comes racing in through the front door with her best friend and says, "The ring I want's on sale, let's go get it." My dad stood there like, "Ring? What ring?" They were married 21 years until my mom died a few years ago. I'm sorry for your loss. My wife proposed to me. We were on a train going to visit her family. We were talking about random stuff and suddenly she asked me if I want to marry her. I immediately said yes, and we continued the conversation. But the next day she asked me again if I want to marry and I said yes again. She wasn't sure what to do next, so she said it will only be official when I'll propose to her. The following day when we were at our home, I took a beer bottle cap, made a hole in it and shaped it into a ring. I then proposed to her. A year later we married. I'm a guy and my wife proposed to me. I was totally caught off guard, not specifically because I was the one being proposed to, but because we had never discussed marriage at any point prior. As far as my reaction, well, it went down like this. I got home from work and she was waiting in my room for me sitting on my bed. She was like, "Take off your jacket." I said okay and did so. Then immediately she said, "Sit down." At this point I'm kind of concerned. Then she starts talking. She said, "I really like you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." But I heard it as, "I really like you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." And I was fully expecting her to say, "But I can't." My heart dropped. I thought I was getting dumped. Anyways, then she started babbling and not being able to collect her words and thoughts, and I had no idea what was going on. Then she pulled out the box with a ring. I said yes, and had to get my composure because of the emotional roller coaster I was on. I hugged her, went upstairs, told my mom and cried tears of joy. Then I went to the bar to tell all our friends. Now we're married, with a house and a dog. Yes, wait, no, don't be mad. I was planning to propose to you and you beat me to it. He's lucky he's so adorable. 22 years and still going strong. I'm stealing adorable from you. It's a perfect descriptor. D, very happy you're happy. I wasn't planning on proposing, but the question just popped out in the middle of a conversation. He said yes, then had to go for a walk to call his best friend and freak out a little bit. But when he got back we decided we needed to do it right. There weren't any rings at this stage, but we could at least do the whole down on one knee thing. We couldn't decide who should actually do that though, so we both got down on one knee and proposed to each other at the same time. And we both said yes. Sounds like a wholesome train wreck with a happy outcome. I'm guessing you're now quite happy with one another. He said yes, and was very, very happy. He wasn't a ring person, so I got us both custom sterling silver Lego shaped necklaces that lock together to form a heart. It's been 7 years since we both started dating and we're wonderful together. I'd prefer a locking Lego necklace to a ring tbh. I proposed and he thought he was being punked, but after the initial reaction and 3 years of engagement, we tied the knot almost 5 years ago and still going strong. I went all dyslexic and thought it said he thought he was being punked through the 3 years of engagement, but nice and congrats. My husband kept telling me how he was going to propose, and I told him to stop telling me, and he got annoyed and told me to just propose to him then, out of frustration. So I planned a proposal for a couple months later. I had bought a band for him already, bought a light up LED ring box from Amazon to make it super cheesy, and ended up proposing in bed because the weather was crap. I quoted a wedding speech scene from his favorite movie and asked him in the same way he asked me to be his girlfriend, which was in bed. He was really excited, got super cute. He was surprised because he didn't think I'd actually propose and figured we'd just decide to be engaged at some point. Then we had crab engagement dinner with his mom and stepdad later on and he was super stoked about it. Oh snap. Crab engagement dinner sounds freaking amazing. My mother looked at my dad and just said, should we get married? And dad, who has 4 kids, a house and dog with this woman, just looked at her and said, sure, I hear the tax benefits are great. I proposed in a way. I had to quit my job due to a disability, and I said to him, I guess since open enrollment is over, we'll need to get married so I can get on your insurance. He said, yeah, I guess you're right. He said yes and was overjoyed, tit up with emotion. Not uncommon for my so. He still gets teary-eyed when talking about our relationship, how happy we make each other etc. Pretty much how you'd expect anyone wanting to, and having discussed the possibility of marrying their partner to react. I was just sneaky and beat him to the punch. Plus, he loves taking people off guard by telling them that I proposed. My GF and I were talking about the future, how we'd been living together for a few years already, and how we have been dating for 5.5 years. We wanted to buy a house together and merge our bank accounts so we wouldn't have to worry about who is paying what bill. Then, she said, heck, why don't you just marry me? I said I'd like that very much. A few hours later I realized that she was the one who proposed and realized that I just said yes. Today marks our 2-year anniversary. Happy anniversary. I proposed to my boyfriend with a kinda egg full of jelly rings. He laughed and whipped out an engagement ring he'd been planning to propose to me with. We're getting married in July. He said yes. It was a very casual way of doing it. I didn't make a big deal out of it. We brought rings together and we didn't tell people about our engagement for a while afterwards. Just so we could enjoy being engaged ourselves first. We don't really tell people that I proposed as we are very private people about our love for each other. So it is kind of a secret that is just for us. We were planning to get married later in the year, but I wanted to move it up to match my grandparents' anniversary. I was like, wanna get married in July? And he said sure. No huge surprise. No getting on one knee. We just knew for a long time that we were heading down the road to marriage. Oh hey, I can answer this one. I proposed to my BF of 5 years on our 5th anniversary this last October, back nearer to the beginning of our relationship. He mentioned at one point that he thought it would be nice to be the one proposed to. We were never a casual couple, so this wasn't unusual to talk about marriage pretty early on for us. I told him I'd be happy to do that. He was thrilled. Cut to 2 years later and it's coming up on time, so I planned very carefully how to surprise him. I picked my own ring, and he picked a watch for me to use since it's the only jewelry he wears. We're both gamers and love adventure and puzzles, so I contacted a local escape room and asked them if I could use one of the rooms to propose. I got our best friends, and now maid of honor and best man, in on it with me, and I very casually brought up maybe doing an escape room on our anniversary over the course of a few weeks. Oh, but we can't do it alone. Let's bring our friends. I was trying so hard to be cool and now let him know what was up. We did the escape room, and at the end, where the last clue was the watch box as well. I proposed. He was stunned and thrilled, and now we're getting married in 18 months. Basically, it was awesome and empowering and so much fun to plan and execute, and it gave us an amazing story to tell people. 10/10 experience. Would absolutely recommend. Love the idea, and very cute. I'm a figure skater and I made this entire performance for him to overjoyed by Stevie Wonder. When I got off the ice, I popped the question and he cried and said yes. LOL. My boyfriend and I had already discussed spending the rest of our lives together, but I decided to propose approximately 2 weeks before one of his visits. In that time, I made a Lego ring box. He loves Lego, and picked out a black tungsten ring with rose gold edges and a small CZ embedded in it. He'd talked about how much he liked black tungsten rings before. I didn't actually get to order the ring until he was here, because I had to trick him into getting size first. I had originally intended to propose as part of a big fancy date night we were planning, but I had the ring and the box hidden away the night before Valentine's Day and I just couldn't wait. On Valentine's Day, so cliche, I know. I hid the box under a hoodie I was carrying and went to sit next to him on the couch. I had to wait for him to be done watching a miniseries and recapping it for me, which was stressful. But then I said, "Can I talk to you about something?" I said to him, "You know you're my best friend. I don't know what our future holds, but I do know that I can't imagine my future without you in it. So would you marry me? And I pulled out the box and flipped it open to show him the ring. He cried. I was like, you have to say something. It's a yes or no question, and he was like, oh yeah, yes, obviously. And then I put the ring on him and we took pictures. I tried to get him to call his mom, but he didn't, and later got in trouble for that, lol. He told me that he hadn't been expecting it at all, but he'd been trying to figure out how and when to propose to me, and it was nice to have the tables turned and to know how much effort I'd put into coming up with a proposal tailored to him. He had no idea, even when I got his ring size, that it was coming, and he really appreciated it and was thrilled. I had a blast planning and executing it, even though it was super stressful and I didn't know exactly what I was going to say before I said it, and I totally recommend the experience. By the way, we both have engagement rings which we'll probably use as wedding bands. Mine matches and is sort of opposite, is a white tungsten band with a ring of rose gold around the middle. We were out on a hike. Previously we had discussed getting married or just staying partnered, and hadn't really made any big decisions. Anyway, we were stopped at some vista, and I looked out. I just said, without planning, I think I want to get married. He said, let's do it, and we both broke out in big smiles. I asked my husband to marry me. He said yes. He was planning on proposing a few months later. I don't think it was a surprise. We went out the next morning to pick out rings together. Now, one house, 2 wonderful kids, and nearly 15 years later we are still as happy as can be. Not a woman, but my fiancé of almost 4 years popped the question 11 days after we started dating. I said yes, but that was because we had been friends for 7 years before we decided to date. Well, I suppose I'm cheating my answer, because technically I did not propose first. He proposed and it made me so happy, but also was not unexpected as we had talked about marriage for a while. However, a couple of things got flubbed during the day, seriously minor, and I could kinda tell he was feeling annoyed with himself for not making it perfect. It was perfect to me. I felt like I needed to make him feel special too. So I got a group of my friends to help me propose to him in Overwatch. I know, cringy cheesy to some of you, but we have never played so much of a game together, lol. I made us get into a custom game and said some sappy words, and then used Anna's sit emote to kneel and propose to him as Reinhardt. Haha. I then ran over to the other room, we play in separate rooms, and actually kneeled with his ring in my hand. He knew a ring was coming but was actually surprised, so it was fun to do something nice for him without the pressure of it being the real proposal. I proposed by getting down on one knee and opening a box of pizza that had just been delivered last Valentine's Day. We were watching the live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2. Secret of the Ooze, and the pizza arrived exactly when there was pizza on the screen. I had dropped enough hints that he knew it was coming, just not when. I had Pizza Hut right inside the box lid. This is cheesy, but will you marry me? He laughed for a good 20 seconds before saying yes. Then I gave him the ring. We got married last August, had a 2-hour reception in a coffee shop, then went looking for Bigfoot on our honeymoon. When we first started dating, I mentioned I would like to propose when if it came time for that. Due to circumstances, he already knew exactly when I was going to propose to, so it wasn't a surprise. Since we met playing D&D, I got our old college crew back together and DM'd a personalized game filled with memories and inside jokes. The last riddle led him up to the roof, where I had a "Will you marry me" banner and candles. He loved it. Since he knew when I was going to do it, the surprise was how. Of course he said yes, and we went back downstairs and called our families. He said he liked that I proposed, because it took the pressure off him to plan something, and it made him feel really special. I wanted to propose because I've always been a sentimental, theatrical person, and because he has anxiety, and I didn't want him to ever wonder if I said yes out of obligation or because I felt pressured. TLDR. He loved it and it went great. 10/10 would recommend proposing to your BF. I was so nervous in my proposal that he jokingly said, "How are you proposing to me?" in an attempt to calm my nerves, but still clearly oblivious to the fact that yes, that was indeed what I was trying to do with my awkward, sentimental, drawn out speech. At that point I stopped trying and said yes in response just to get it over with. He didn't believe me and said, "Have you even got a ring?" in a mocking voice, thinking I was messing with him. I said, "Yes you dong," and whipped out the ring right in front of his face. He was completely taken by surprise despite the fact that I measured his ring finger a few months before. We're still saving up for our wedding and his ring is a little big, but he wears it with pride and loves showing it off. I can't wait to marry that oblivious dork. He said yes, but only if I pack up my life, quit my job, use whatever savings I had to buy a plane ticket to move in with him. If I didn't have enough, sell the jewelry my grandmother left me to get it. Yeah, I noped out real fast. What the? I proposed to my husband before we renewed our vows, which became a legal marriage in the Dominican Republic by accident. He cried and understood my emotional reaction from when he proposed. He was shaking and everything. I did try to get him a fake diamond ring as a joke, but his fingers were sadly too big. I got him some napkin rings in the style of engagement rings. I booked everything beforehand to tie in with our second honeymoon. Thankfully the place we stayed at had formal wear as a requirement at a restaurant, so he had a suit ready. I had to hide my dress. He did say yes and had 2 days warning. I don't know if this counts because I honestly can't pinpoint a specific moment where one person popped the question. But one of us said, "You want to get married?" The other said yes. But I remember being the one that said, "Let's just buy our wedding rings and use them as engagement rings." And then I ordered a set from Amazon. So I think I am going to say I proposed based off of that reason. Then we put them on each other's fingers when they arrived, ate dinner, and watched some Netflix. I proposed twice. Once while tipsy after a boozy lunch as a joke. We'd never even been on a date and that night we hooked up. The second time we were discussing travel plans that seemed very over the top. Turns out he was planning on proposing on the trip, and I just said that sounds like it could be a honeymoon. I've never wanted to get married here, so maybe we should get married in the UK and then this trip can be the honeymoon. If you want. He was a bit speechless, then laughed a little. I went to sit in his lap and he quickly tried to blow it off, then went back to work. He worked from home by that point. He proceeded to barely talk or look at me for an entire day post proposal. Turns out he was doing the sums on whether we could afford it and rejigging it all in his mind and finding me a ring. LOL. I thought he'd totally blown it all and called a close friend of both of ours in absolute hysterics. The day after I suggested all this, there was a supermoon and we'd planned to go watch it rise over the ocean. We went and arrived early and proceeded to sit in the car silently for 30 minutes. I was silently crying by then, absolutely convinced this man I wanted to marry so badly had been scared off. Nope. He was crapping bricks cause he was about to show me the ring he'd selected online and was nervous he'd not like it. I loved it and then he relaxed and I berated him for being a doorknob and giving me a heart attack. He was so caught up in his own feelings he'd not realized how he was acting. I will love this silly man forever. He cried. He also thought I was cheating on him and or about to break up with him, and completely ruined my proposal plans. Story time. I knew he wanted to marry me. He had already told me so, but I wasn't ready at the time. Recently divorced, and he told me that when I was ready I had to ask him. Well, a few months later I decided I was ready, went online, bought a ring, planned the proposal, and was just waiting for the ring to be delivered. I am also apparently horrible at hiding things, so he realizes I'm hiding something, and asks me a few times. One night, after a few drinks, he asks again if I'm hiding anything. And it becomes a little argument. He starts asking me if I'm sure I want to be with him, and I snapped, "Yes, I'm sure. I'm so sure I bought a ring." He realized what that meant and started crying. Ring came in a few days later, but I never got to do my awesome proposal. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.